Shirley here with Sirius Taurus Moon. The ascendant is close to Aldebaran. And the moon has ingressed into Scorpio at 0 degrees Scorpio. Venus is 22 and square in Chiron. Chiron is ruled by Mars, that's still at 20 degrees Capricorn. Jupiter has turned to the 19 degrees of Cancer. And Sol is 21 degrees Capricorn. Midheaven is applying to Deneb Algedi, and let's have an I make problems episode. So, Ik maak probleem. In this episode of Ik maak probleem, I'm going to study rare earth minerals using Energy Crystal Lovers trick. And I'm going to start with a mineral called cobalt. Now, as I've been refining my emotional well-being, I know that there have been I'm on Jabberwock roll, okay? Cobalt. Cobalt. So I'm going to use the spiritual meaning and let's see what information I can form from this. So, spiritual meaning of cobalt: clarity, wisdom, tranquility, spiritual insight, emotional healing, self-love, and communication when it is ethically mined. Calmness and trust. And we have cobaltite, which is the gray one, cobaltone calcite, which is heart stone chakra. Okay, cobaltocalcite is a stone I actually worked with. Cobalt aura quartz. Then we just have cobalt. Now, let's see basically how long does it take for cobalt to form. Now, it's a naturally occurring element found in the Earth's crust, alongside nickel and copper deposits, taking millions of years to concentrate into economically viable ore bodies or deep-sea nodules. This is where we go into Sedna. Okay, Sedna takes 11 or 12 millennia to surround the zodiac. And when we talk about remineralizing the earth, we understand that building an ecosystem is something that in millions of years we will be harvesting. In modern economy, that's something that affects us not only for energy crystals, which are a wonderful byproduct of mining, by the way. But also reminding us that even when we harvest on not fossil energy or oil, which also takes minerals to produce the infrastructure, but even solar energy or hydro energy or anything that takes infrastructure that is not made of wood, we're basically developing industrialized booms on the basis of a resource that is not so recyclable they try to produce these minerals in a lab, which is highly likely to produce side effects um, as well. Now, that's literally all of our technology. And when we look at previous societies that collapsed, albeit being highly technological, there may be an explanation here. So, the essential heavy metals cobalt, chromium, copper, and nickel were also present in all 4 toothpaste samples tested. Good thing, bad thing, who knows? It's considered heavy metal, yes. Now, basically, when we think about what do these minerals do in the world, from the broadcasting of this episode, um, our clocks, we talk about quartz, the industrial boom, it makes us think, first of all, we may sustain for millennia with technology that stands the test of time. Okay, if we compare, for example, the cars that people are expected with consumerism to replace every 2-3 years versus a car that holds a century, we understand that the car that holds a century line of productions would mean that if we don't have overpopulation that usually is happening in societies where rape is prevalent, then that means that a millennia is basically only 10 generations of such cars. And of course, we can have cars that hold for even longer. My prediction with Saturn-Uranus meeting in Gemini is that technology that stands the test of time is going to be an issue because it doesn't coincide with the consumerism that we know. For example, a year or two ago, the blender of our household died. It was older than me. I'm 41 years old. If we buy a new blender today, I don't think it will get to the same age. And so, just like if we harvested all the trees at once, then we won't have enough trees, even though trees are growing. Is the same, but on a millennia scale. So when we're talking about men fearing that women will not want to have their children, and we're talking about the same ideology that brought not consumerism, but the technology that doesn't stand the test of time, the preference of profit over value. Actually, I was watching an accountant video, and he mentioned how since 2005 we have been, this is Richard J. Murphy, and how we basically have been preferring to look at profit over maintenance of actual value. For example, the infrastructure of the trains, making sure the trains are still punctual, making sure our buildings, particularly the rental properties, are still sustaining, and how our lack of dedication to preserve what was already built due to preferring profit and our insistence on preserving slavery-based society. Okay, because first of all, slavery-based society means those trains need to be on time, and those buildings need to they need big buildings so the people can sleep and work, and um, and then people cannot reimagine a more relaxed society, okay, non-slavery-based society, um, which, by the way, is necessary for fertility. Now, those that think that they will make others work for them find that those others, and I hear Gen Z online saying millennials were sold hope and so on and so forth. Our generation, Gen Z, um, didn't even have that to begin with. This means that people growing without any prospective well-being, of course, there's nothing left there to work. There is only typhus. There is no employees. Um, Economy that relies on extortion cults, trafficking and making other nations even addicted to, for example, opiates, ends up not really being able to sustain itself. And this is both the social situation, or what economists would call the social capital. In praxis, it means if a woman in Britain um, is bullied by her fellow men, not immigrants even, not different cultures, then it means that men and women don't get along, and entire capital is falling. And the reason she's bullied is because she has opinion of her own, a mind of her own, job of her own, a career of her own, and is also being taxed. So, and when they take the women away, there's nobody to stop that when slavery is instilled, even in academia, using technology, targeting individuals. First, they got the women away from academia. They did sexual harassment, they did this, they did that. And as all the things were accepted within their societies, secret societies, women didn't accept that. And when they didn't accept that, so women decided to meet their intellectual pursuits independently of a hierarchical institution that doesn't really allow for science to evolve. Um, and then the men that were left began to be more and more targeted with technology, with all these things. They couldn't turn to the women because they had treasoned on the women. Um, yes, before there was ICE, 2, 3 years ago, before we even heard about ICE in the United States, there were homeless women that were sexually harassed at work, had a child neurodivergent, and dreamed about the American dream. Very clean home, with next to forests, with some chickens. That's the American dream. And the American dream was homeless way before ICE. At first, ICE got to the immigrant. BIPOC people said it's not going to stay at the BIPOC people because they know the trajectory. They know they are persecuted because they're BIPOC, and then Hispanic, then immigrants, then and then there is a white woman shot in the face in Minnesota, and have people in Minnesota that are supporting the murder. Not all people in Minnesota, of course. Yes, in fact, the governor of Minnesota suggested arming against ICE, which is outright civil war. But um, all of these things, of course, affect how much minerals do we harvest for our energy. Nikola Tesla made patent, and then gay people say, "Oh, Nikola Tesla, he was Slavic. He said we came to work, to suffer, to this, to that." It may be why, if this is true, then it may be why we don't have Nikola Tesla energy, right? Because if we use energy to enslave people, then the energy is free, but society is going extinct, and the rare earth minerals that we still need to produce the technology, even if we harvest, I don't know, energy from thunder or create thunder. But if we had zero rape, zero slavery, zero um, exploitation society, we could use minerals and have infrastructure that produces free energy. We could use the same charge for infrastructure for building the infrastructure and maintaining it. But for that, we cannot sustain a slavery-based society. The people that make the policies that are favoring profit over basically humanity are people that were ritually abused and ritually abused. And for such people, even to destroy entire earth is okay. They want to depopulate all the others, but try to control every single facet of human life, which is not only impossible, but also backfiring very malefically. Can we produce in a lab the rare earth minerals that we need? Probably. In fact, United States is working on such projects of minerals refinery and production of minerals to stand up to China's. And people ask, well, so why do we see ice? Because they don't want we, the people, to be a part of the new economy. And do they sustain their own societies? No. It's always built on trauma bonds, persecution, and perpetual war. It's the elite societies that need to change. So, yes, we can remineralize. For example, by a simple act as digging half moons and dams alongside the slope of, let's say, the Dead Sea, we can remineralize the area. That area was mined for minerals by Keel, Chevron, for quite some time. Now they want to drill the oil and gas. Let's say they do drill the oil and gas. It wouldn't be harmful to have an adjacent project that builds dams and half moons so that the place will be remineralized. But if we have slavery-based society, and trafficking-based extortion cults that are the wealth of nations, there really is nobody to think 12 millennia from now and make sure that each place on Earth have a place to sustain the minerals and remineralize, although it's rather simple. We can live in a rewilding forest for millennia, by the way. But not as exploitation, slavery-based society that wants to populate and populate. Why do people want to populate if we don't have rare earth minerals to support all of the energy, which means the water infrastructure, the electricity infrastructure, or the solar energy infrastructure? If we use gas and oil, and by the way, if we exchange, if we don't dig in the rare earth minerals from the ocean, it can be harming to the existing ecosystems, also not just digging the oil and the gas. But yes, of course, with the rare earth minerals based on the solar or hydro um, or the windmills, then yes, indeed, it's less mined than with fossils. This is true. I have to, yes. And yet, those rejuvenating energies require for us to be not slavery-based society. By the way, also the fossils, they are not there everywhere. There are reserves, and these reserves, they are renewable as well. It's just like the rare earth minerals. It takes several millennia. Now, even if we're talking about having partially oil, partially gas, partially electricity, as pretty much is the same is the situation today. All of these things are possible, but what's not possible is to live in extortion called slavery-based, rape-based society, call for population. Because there are some, I'm sorry, very educated, however, incel men, okay? Um, yes, or men that were tortured to deliver certain thing that they don't believe in, and do this to protect their family, whatever. Okay, but when we have this situation, these are the options. For gay men, there is co-parenting. Okay, um, but this is something where, like I said, tortured or chipped, just technology. For example, do predict that with Saturn conjoining Sedna, which we have around almost a decade before, even a bit less, um, all these rare earth minerals we put in technology inside people's non-volitionally, um, the rare earth minerals to sustain such slavery-based society are going to go extinct. Or there's going to be miners' revolution or something that will interfere in the infrastructure of, because Saturn takes the foundation of, I don't remember when did the peril for rejuvenating energies began, but I wouldn't be surprised if that would be Saturn, Pluto. Even if I think about the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunction, uh, the digidollar or the digital coins, digital currencies, COVID, of course, but also the electric boom. Here we had, then we had the war in Ukraine, which produces the cables for the electric Geelys, which is Volvo, Geely. Yes, I don't remember which exactly the brands and so on and so forth. Now, and that was for China. Geely is a Chinese company um, of electric cars. And not only that, the cars recharge themselves with solar panels. Okay, it's just one company. There is Tesla, there is Lightyear One. Now, Pluto Saturn basically was setting boundaries to oils and fossil energy. Well, they want to reassemble Standard Oil. Again, Greenpeace can challenge Standard Oil, but not the chemtrails. Cloud seeding is used today in Iran instead of, for example, digging half moons, which brings, which reforests, it brings rain, and creating ponds, which was used all around the world, but in Iran they want to have tech boom, a lot of booms, and a lot of tech, and a lot of bubbles that boom and explode. So, explosion of infrastructures, we're going to see that with the refining of Saturn Uranus. We are seeing that um, Uranus sextile Saturn from Taurus and Pisces was the underground tunnels in Palestine exploding, which was said to have been the most difficult area to fight on Earth. I don't know. Um, the Gen the generation after Gen Z, which is the Pluto Capricorns, they talk about the skibidi toilet, which basically talks about the tunnels underground, and the CIA and so on, which is human trafficking and child trafficking. Again, when this is the wealth of nations, we are extinguishing even our rejuvenating energies. And all the while, it looks like we don't even have a place to put the minerals. That it goes to the teeth, to the chips, to the... Okay, very strange picture all in all. This is because of profit. Looking at the profit line without looking at anything else.